What's happening, coaches? Pete here. Hey, want to talk to you today about the image that we generally try to present as size. And again, this isn't specific to financial coaching. It's something I see in small business a lot. And basically, my tip to you is don't try to look big. And it's one of those things where I think it's fairly subtle and it's maybe even a little subconscious, but it kind of trickles into a lot of different aspects of what we're trying to do. And what I mean by not trying to look big is probably the most overt things is what we say when we're talking about our practice, right? So when I talk about my financial coaching practice, I say, this is what I do, this is what I have, this is what I've done, this is what people have done with me, whatever it might be, right? But what I see a lot of times are people starting out and using the term we a lot. Like, well, what we try to do is do this. What we try to do is this. What we do and what we have and what we've developed and some of those things, right? And there is no we, there's just you. And one of the tendencies there, and I think one of the pieces of almost reverse psychology, is that small companies try to make themselves look big, right? So small companies will run TV commercials with a lot of polish. They will try to build a website that makes them look really huge. They will often try to put both of their locations. If they have a partner that lives in California and one that lives in Chicago, they'll put locations up there and put both of their addresses. And it's one of those things when we see things like that, I think we tend to kind of see through them and we say, hey, they're not that big. They only have two locations, right? If you go to Nike's website, you don't see every office or store location listed there because they are so big, right? And they don't need to put the addresses out there like some sort of signal. In fact, some of the biggest companies don't put any address there. And sometimes they don't want you to reach out to a local regional office or, send an inquiry to a frontline retail place or something like that, right? So a lot of times the big companies are trying to look small and they say, hey, what I do, and you might see it in commercials, like a big bank will have a banker and we'll talk about like how I work with my clients. State Farm has this. Hey, they pick a representative, an agent from a small town in Montana, and they have her as part of the commercial or the focus of the commercial. And so big companies are always trying to look small and small companies are always trying to look big. And when you're trying to look big, when you're trying to get that perfect logo, when you're trying to make it seem like you have a great tagline, when you're trying to do, um, you know, presentations that look like really polished, or when you're trying to create stationery business cards that make you look big, and you're trying to put things like, hey, you know, uh, a senior financial coach or whatever it might be, right? Kind of made up titles that you're saying, well, I'm the operations manager, I'm CEO, whatever it might be. There are a lot of ways that it just kind of trickles into other things. And I think what we are doing is we're making it tougher on ourselves when we try to act big, and people kind of see through it and start to, I don't know, I think start to distrust a little bit, right? Because they know you're small and most people want that small experience. And yet we just have this tendency to try to fight that need out there. Maybe sometimes for our own ego, maybe it's because we're worried about how we're going to be perceived, but whatever it is, feel free to embrace the idea that you're small. Feel free to embrace the idea that you are just a sole proprietor or a single person in a business, right? Leverage that and say, this is the only person you're going to work with, whether it's on problems or scheduling or, through your individual financial questions or whatever it might be, right? I am the single point of contact. So as long as that's the case, then I would just embrace it and leverage it. So that's my thought for today. Embrace the idea that you're small. Don't try to look big. I'll see you later.